She says, maybe we should stand back because we're not on our marks and they could see the light behind you.
Blake and Ryan right now.
It's interesting. So online, I feel like the public is overwhelmingly on Baldoni's side.
As counsel for Wayfair, just as from Justin's attorneys, James Heath, Steve Seritz, Justin Baldoni, etc.,
solidified this lie from Baldoni's viewpoint that Blake Lively made.
The litigation war between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively has reached a boiling point, with Baldoni striking a series of legal punches that have surprised Hollywood. What began as a passionate dispute has developed into a full-fledged litigation. Meltdown for Blake, complete with leaked film, unforeseen legal twists, and a swelling list of contradictions in his charges. Baldoni is turning the tables, and the courtroom is getting heated. How did this all happen? Why is Blake's legal team panicked? And how did Baldoni damage Blake's case so completely? Let's look over the most recent dramatic developments in this intense court feud.
Including Blake Lively. If they find that she just was dishonest and lied on one single point of evidence in this case, in her testimony, the jury instruction says that they are allowed to discount her entire testimony. In other words, her testimony won't even count. And that is a that's a harsh reality, because if the jury chooses not to listen to anything she has to say, she's the best witness in this case. Everything she's saying in her amended complaint is really from her. There's not a whole lot of documentary evidence we've seen to support the claims that are made in her complaint, like you see with Justin Baldoni's complaint, where there's extensive documentary evidence backing it up. So her testimony is super important in this case. And if you can show the jury that she's lied, juries don't like liars.
The first major blow came when Justin Baldoni's legal team presented footage that utterly contradicted Blake Lively's earlier comments. This unexpected revelation caused Blake's lawyers to amend their claim in a frantic quest to recover. Legal. Experts pointed out that the tape showed behind-the-scenes moments, showing that Blake's claims were not as solid as she had claimed. The last-minute revisions to Blake's complaint came across as reactionary, eroding her credibility and giving Baldoni an advantage.
The first line, the first thing that's said is from Blake Lively. And what is it? It's a director note. She says, maybe we should stand back because we're not on our marks and they could see the light behind you. She said that. So it's really interesting that in her complaint, she's saying that he was talking to her not as his character, but as Justin Baldoni, when as soon as camera was called out, she's talking to him as Blake, trying to give a directive note. She started that, and he just followed her lead and explained, no, it's okay with the light behind me, it looks good, and so on and so on. Another really interesting thing about that moment is as he explains to her that it's nice for him to be in front of the light, and when he blocks it, he leans in and he gets really close to her ear and he almost like whispers it to her very softly. And we might look at that and go, why did he say it like that? Why didn't he just tell her? And there's a very good reason for this. They're both very aware of the fact that we're only going to use the visuals of this, not what they're saying. So to get this shot, their body language needs to communicate. Ryle and Lily having this slow dance, he's trying to figure out what Ryle would do in this scene. So I think that it's very conceivable that with this back and forth, he would give her this peck on the forehead when she goes from here to turning her hand and holding his and relaxing into him. And the really big distinction that we really have to be mindful of at this point is the difference between her feeling uncomfortable and him objectively doing something to cause her to feel uncomfortable. Those are two different conversations, and a lot of people are having those conversations jumbled at the same time. So it's hard to invalidate someone, right? And say, no, you weren't feeling uncomfortable. We could look at some of this and go, it doesn't really seem behaviorally like she's uncomfortable, but maybe she's hiding it with some acting. That's possible.
Just when it seemed the case couldn't be any more dramatic, a shocking twist was disclosed. Both legal teams provided conflicting evidence, but Baldoni's attorneys offered more thorough paperwork and stronger witness testimony. Blake's attempts to rebut the evidence were ineffective, with courtroom sources remarking that her team appeared considerably shaken. This turning point not only boosted Baldoni's stance, but it also raised public scrutiny of Blake's legal practices.
I guess attitude towards Blake and Ryan right now.
It's interesting. So online, I feel like the public is overwhelmingly on Baldoni's side. And then we obviously just saw Blake and Ryan at the SNL 50th anniversary. And I feel like even in Hollywood, we're kind of seeing that even they didn't seem too excited with wanting to be next to him. I think who was it? Chevy Chase took a photo with them, and I think one other, Dakota from 50 Shades of Grey, she took a photo with them. But like outside of that, normally, you know, Blake Lively has her Taylor Swift and their, you know, girl posse that always is taking photos together, and we didn't see a lot of that.
Things grew worse when Blake rejected to be deposed by Baldoni's legal team, arguing that the lawyer's tough questioning method was too cruel. Her reticence aroused eyebrows, with many interpreting it as an attempt to avoid confronting harsh truths under oath. Judicial experts condemned the decision, stressing that declining to participate in regular judicial proceedings rarely ends well for the party under pressure.
Dear Judge Lyman, as counsel for Wayfair, just as from Justin's attorneys, James Heath, Steve Seritz, Justin Baldoni, etc., Melissa Nathan, etc., we write to advise the court of an issue that Wayfair parties wish to address at the upcoming conference on February 3rd. During a conference of the parties' counsel on January 30th, counsel for the Wayfarer requested the earliest possible deposition of Blake Lively. Counsel for Mr. Lively, Ryan Reynolds, stated their objection to the Wayfarer party's lead counsel conducting a deposition of Blake Lively. Specifically, the Lively party's counsel indicated that they object to Brian J. Friedman personally taking Miss Lively's deposition based upon unspecified statements made by Mr. Friedman. When asked to elaborate on the grounds for their objection, you don't get to pick the suitcase, Blake. And she really does things. She's like, gets to choose which of the opponent's attorneys she gets to talk to. Like, is she going to do this in the trial as well? Like, oh, well, I don't know, Judge. I don't like you. Can you change your outfit a little bit? This witness is a little aggressive for me. Maybe you can do it a little nicer. Like, what is she doing? I can't even believe it. Now, this may have been some legal tactic that her team was just trying to do to delay, maybe. And clearly, Justin's legal team wisely decided to call it out because it adds and goes to the image that Blake is seen as, which is entitled and completely out of her mind. I just, the audacity and the entitlement of thinking that you can choose we're not going to be deposed by him. Now, if there was some personal history or something, I mean, he'd be thrown from the case.
Blake's team filed new court documents in an attempt to regain momentum, but they did not produce the smoking evidence that her supporters expected. While the documents confirmed previous accusations, they lacked precise evidence, making it impossible for Blake's legal team to effectively substantiate their claims. This absence of actual evidence raised skepticism, hurting their case in court. The lack of compelling new information helped Baldoni's side to preserve their lead. Baldoni's persistent presentation of reliable data proceeded to impact the court proceedings considerably in his favor. His capacity to present clear, verifiable proof contrasted dramatically with Blake's dependence on imprecise assertions and unproven claims. As a result, Blake's error, or perhaps oversight, was considered as another Baldoni victory. Supporters on both sides kept a tight check on the case, with many anticipating that the latest finding may tilt the scales substantially in favor of Baldoni unless Blake's team produced a stronger plan going ahead.
Breaking news, Blake Lively's team just filed their response to the Justin Baldoni lawsuit. Is it late? Well, this is rich. Blake Lively's team had all day to file their response and waited until the last possible second, arguably a minute late. Girl, are you still Googling how to win a lawsuit or what is going on? I haven't even had time to dig through it yet, but if you're just as unhinged as me and you want to read these documents, I've got the full zip file on littlemissjacob.com. If you also stayed up like a psycho refreshing the docket, drop your first impressions because something tells me they weren't sitting on a solid defense, just stalling. I'm not sure. Anyway, grab your popcorn, the PDFs, and let's see what excuses they're running with this time. You're welcome, besties.
Perhaps the most agonizing moment happened when Baldoni's legal team pointed out discrepancies in Blake's allegations by cross-referencing her past interviews, on-set agreements, and legal filings. Baldoni highlighted how Blake's allegations had evolved in suspicious ways over time. Observers in the courtroom observed how obviously anxious Blake's legal team appeared as Baldoni's lawyers combed through the contradictions.
Solidified this lie from Baldoni's viewpoint that Blake Lively made. And she lied in their minds about what occurred during that dancing scene because she wasn't aware that there was audio that would maybe explain and give some context to what was happening there. So of course she changes her in her amended complaint, she changes the view of it a little bit because she has to, because you can't contest the audio. So I would take the position, if I was representing Baldoni, that she lied. And if she lied, I just want to firm that lie up. I want to firm that lie up in deposition, and I want to firm it up multiple times in deposition in different ways. I want to firm it up when she's taking the stand at trial. I want to impeach her with what she said in her deposition. If she contradicts that, I also want to impeach her with the actual audio. And then in closing argument, I want to be able to tell the jury.
Why has this judicial conflict lasted on so long? According to individuals close to the subject, Blake is still firm about not settling. She appears confident in her abilities to outmaneuver Baldoni with her ways, feeling that time is on her side. However, as the days advance into weeks, it becomes evident that Baldoni's obsessive search of the truth is taking a toll on her. With additional legal fees stacking up and public opinion shifting against her, Blake is under increasing strain. Some of her closest supporters are apparently asking her to reconsider her views. They advise her that continuing on this path could result in considerably bigger losses, both financially and reputationally. The longer the suit drags on, the more it appears evident that Baldoni's determination may eventually prevail. Will Blake accept their advice and cut her losses before things spiral out of control? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear: the stakes are higher than ever.
Went into more detail. Speaking of someone, the Justin that I know isn't capable of doing the things that he's accused of doing because he truly sees himself as his feminist. But Blake clearly got grossed out. I honestly feel like it was the perfect storm of two opposing personalities. When Baldoni and Wayfair execs hold meetings, they often start by asking participants to go around the table and share something private, something that brings them joy and has nothing to do with their jobs or their career. In certain professional circles, like those of yoga instructors or doulas, this type of icebreaker might be welcomed, but among time-crunched agents, entertainment lawyers, studio execs, Blake Lively's, folks not exactly known for their touchy-feely ways, a gesture like this nature comes with risks. In my head, I was like, I'm sorry, are we at Cafe Effing Gratitude?
The public was divided, with supporters of both superstars taking sides. However, when more damning material surfaces, Baldoni's popularity grows. People are flocking to social media to criticize Blake's legal maneuvers, accusing her of playing the victim while making conflicting claims. One viral tweet even joked, "Only a time machine can save Blake Lively from herself," stressing the common perception that her case is unraveling swiftly.
And he is giving Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds absolute hell. And people need to understand that this is a completely new ball game, a kind of an interesting Frankensteinian fusion of the legal world and PR that we have never seen before here, where now these lawsuits, the intention of these types of lawsuits now that we're seeing being filed with these $400 million price tags, so to speak, the intention isn't even to one day win in court, to win in litigation. It's to make a huge media splash and get evidence and arguments out in front of the public in a legal forum. Same studios that you are in a fight to the death with now. That guy, Steve Sarowitz, he's a fucking billionaire. And he evidently does not take too kindly to spoil the delusional actresses, narcissistic actresses, targeting his life's work and his blood, sweat, and tears, not to mention Justin Baldoni's, Jamie Heath's, and the others who've been working with Wayfarer for years now. None of these people are going to just stand by, apparently, and let this spoiled, delusional, narcissistic actress.
Prominent attorneys studying the case have stated that Blake's strategy was flawed from the beginning. Her reliance on emotive pleas over sound facts has put her at a severe disadvantage in her court struggle. Experts note that, while emotional pleadings could be useful in some cases, they lack the weight of concrete evidence, which is important for changing judicial decisions. On the other hand, Baldoni's team has chosen a thorough and disciplined approach, emphasizing real facts, specific timetables, and undeniable proof. Legal analysts say this is the major reason Baldoni is obtaining an advantage in this protracted dispute. By prioritizing clarity and precision, his team has developed a better, more credible story. This contrast in strategy underlines the need of preparation and evidence-based arguments in high-stakes cases. As the proceedings go, it becomes evident that Blake's reliance on emotion alone may not be adequate to counterbalance Baldoni's systematic presentation of facts, which appears to be connecting more effectively with decision makers.
I mean, Blake, the writing doesn't look good from my perspective and from what I've read in the legal documents on both sides. Mm-hmm. But I mean, unless she has some sort of smoking gun that she's been hiding for the last couple of months, it's not looking too good from her. And I think even with Hollywood kind of not really wanting to pose with them or come out and publicly support them like they did initially, you know, now that he's come out with his side of things, people kind of seem to be distancing. So I think she's losing the audience for sure.
And if there is a smoking gun, you'll be the first person to know about it if you're tuning into your podcast. Where can people watch it? Where can people find it and get more information?
Yes, so it live streams Monday through Friday on YouTube, and it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts.
What began as a hard situation has now turned into what appears to be a full breakdown for Blake Lively. The situation looked horrible, with Justin Baldoni adopting a deliberate and determined technique that has left Blake's case in shambles. From leaked footage to humiliating contradictions in her statements, mixed with poor legal strategies, it is becoming increasingly obvious that Baldoni is not only winning, but dominating this battle, both in the courts and in the court of public opinion. Based on the material and the legal files from both parties, Blake's situation does not appear to be improving. Unless she had some form of smoking gun under her sleeve, a revelation so strong that it may radically change the tide, the chances looked to be stacked overwhelmingly against her. And let's be honest, if such evidence existed, we would have seen it by now. It's been months, and there has been no evidence of a game-changing development on her end. Meanwhile, public perception continues to evolve. Initially, Hollywood was hesitant to take sides, maybe for fear of offending either group. However, since Baldoni has spoken out publicly, it looks that individuals are beginning to disassociate themselves from Blake. Whether it's because of the accumulating evidence against her, or just because they know which way the wind is blowing, her audience appears to be diminishing. This loss of support is enormous, especially in an industry where public image routinely influences outcomes, even outside of conventional judicial settings. As Blake's legal team struggles to salvage what remains of her case, many wonder if she still has a shot for redemption, or at least damage control. One thing is certain, Justin Baldoni shows no indications of giving up. His tactics have been persistent, meticulous, and devastatingly effective. Unless Blake pulls off a miracle, a last-minute twist that defies all expectations, this lawsuit may go down as one of the most devastating legal battles Hollywood has seen in recent years. If you want to be up to current on this escalating drama, you may listen to my podcast, where I evaluate the newest developments in detail. It live streams on YouTube Monday through Friday and is also available on different platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Whether you're wanting for analysis, remark, or simply remaining current, you'll find tons of material there. And don't worry, if Blake discovers the elusive smoking gun, you'll be the first to know.